Yeah, the crowd was beginning to gather as soon as we were put in jail. And by morning, they were cluttering up the jail yard. And all that day, they kept coming. And by nightfall, there was 10 to 15,000 whites out there screaming for the blood of us three blacks.
Very tense feeling among everybody. And you felt it all over town.
The sheriff had told the police not to shoot out there. There were women and children. And four big white men got some sledgehammers in their hands, and they started knocking on the cement blocks and throwing around the steel door that was the entrance to the jail.
And they come dragging one of the boys down out of the jail. They took him right down the sidewalk. Everybody was kicking, hitting him, and everything else. And there was a Model T Ford coupe that a woman was standing up there and just, they was all going crazy. And she jumped down. She had high heels. I seen this happen. And her high heels just scraped a hole, just like cut with a knife down his back. And they pulled him out, and they drug him up there by a car. And they took him off of there and put him out, hung him up on the maple tree.
And he reached up to get hold of the rope to keep it from choking him. So they let him down and broke his arms so he couldn't hang on to the rope. They pulled him up again as we went by.
That's oppressive and oppressing to traditional peoples and traditional societies. You know, and if you become afraid to speak about your culture and your traditions and your beliefs, and at one time we had so much knowledge, it created a cosmology. We had an awareness that all things are connected through our spirit, through its spirit. And if we're real pitiful, something out there would take care of you. You don't kill off everything. As it was said, we had ethics, we had values, we had teachings, we had organized government and society. The diseases killed many of us off, but we still survived. That's why Chief Seattle said at one time, we numbered more than the stars in the sky, but that time is no longer.
I made $1 bed, luck is all I've had.
At the end of the war, President Abraham Lincoln had promised the freedmen 40 acres of land per family. But those promises died with Lincoln's assassination.
Instead of 40 acres and a mule, they got the Freedmen's Bank. So instead of land, they were given a bank.
Union soldiers were getting bonuses. So the idea was to create a way to encourage the men to save the money so they wouldn't go squander it or be defrauded out of the money.
It was sold to the freedmen as better than giving you the land. You will earn the money through wages, and you will save it, and you'll buy your own land, and you'll feel better about that. Never mind that hundreds of years of working the land didn't count for earning the land.
The Freedmen's Bank was privately held, owned, and managed by wealthy white men. But the bank's aggressive marketing conveyed a different impression to its black depositors.
The passbooks, the notes, all featured, the heroes. It was Abraham Lincoln, it was General Grant, Howard. It was very targeted. So people were saying, these are the men who freed us. And they're saying, come to this bank.
In freedom, some skilled African Americans saved their hard-earned capital at the Freedmen's Bank and went into business for themselves. For some black business people, personal services were the clearest path to success, and sometimes wealth.
They recognized that their ability to have a particular kind of skill set, which was something that the white population needed, allowed them a certain kind of mobility and freedom.
Many of them were able to cash in on expectations that they were replicating their servant roles where whites were in power and African Americans were serving them. For example, a number of Black barbers continued to keep their exclusively white clientele after the war.
All these barbers spent that time in the barbershop nurturing these relationships with white men and used that money from the barbershop to help fund and to help fuel a Black economic movement within their own communities.
From barbershops to grocery stores, Black businesses relied on the Freedmen's Bank. But a decade after it was founded, Bank President Henry Cook was running the Freedmen's Bank into the ground.
Here was Cook saying, look at all this money. They're putting their money in my bank, and whenever I need it, I'm gonna reach in and get it.
Henry Cook starts looting the bank. He just starts taking this money and lending it or giving it to some friends and acquaintances, just putting the capital into railroad bonds, which was the subprime market of the day.
With the Freedmen's Bank on the verge of collapse, the federal government turned to the best-known African-American leader in the country to salvage it.
Congress brought in Frederick Douglass to serve as the new president of the Freedmen's Bank. Initially, he invested $10,000 of his own money as a way to shore up the bank, as well as to encourage other African Americans to continue to deposit their money into the bank. But the bank was beyond saving. So Douglass had to go to Congress and say that the bank was bankrupt and it needed to close.
The fact is, I was married to a corpse. I found that I had been placed there with the hope that by some drugs or some mighty magic, I would bring it back. But the life, which was the money, was gone.
The hard-earned savings of the freedmen were lost just in the markets, just poof. And nobody gets prosecuted. This was white-collar crime, actual just crime. It was theft, and nobody goes to prison for it.
Not even 10 additional years of slavery could have done so much to throttle the thrift of the freedmen as the mismanagement and bankruptcy of the series of savings banks chartered by the nation for their special aid.
From 1865 to 1874, about 70,000 people deposited the equivalent of $1.3 billion in modern day numbers. So African Americans enthusiastically embraced the Freedmen's Bank. It was a deep loss for African Americans and a loss of a vast amount of Black wealth.
Soon after the collapse of the bank, the federal government withdrew from the South, returning control of the region to former slave owners. The dream of full citizenship for African Americans came to a screeching halt.
We see the end of efforts to educate formerly enslaved people. We see the end of the protection of the right to vote. And what is allowed to happen is a series of legislative and extra-legal attempts to suppress African-American freedom.
Any land that was able to be secured is also violently retaken. And so what you see is a reassertion of that racial hierarchy in the South that had the white landowners at the top and Black labor at the bottom.
Half the Indians, genocide. You guys are the first terrorists. You guys are the first terrorists, the first immigrants.
And what else?
You guys have killed all the Indians. Everywhere I go, I don't see Indians eating out in the restaurant. I see white people. Everywhere I go, I see white people. You see no Indians. You guys are killers. You guys are terrorists.
That sounds like a racist comment to me.
I am.
Okay.
You know,
Thank you.
if you don't like Hitler, you guys are like Hitler. You guys kill everybody.
Didn't like Hitler.
You guys think you belong in Iraq?
Don't like Hitler, don't like Stalin, don't like Mao.
I don't talk to ignorant people. I don't talk to ignorant people. Sorry. How about you?
Thank you.
Woo! Boy, we got a lot of work to do, AG.
You guys got a lot to learn.
We got a lot of work to do.
Fucking illegal. You're all illegal. You're all illegal. We didn't invite none of you here. We're the only Native Americans here. That's right. We're the only Native Americans here. You're all illegal. We didn't invite none of you. Exactly. We didn't invite none of you. Exactly. Get on with your bogus arguments. Get on with your bogus arguments. We're the only legal ones here. We have Native Americans here. Yeah. We should have put that sign up when you son of a bitches came. Yeah, that's right. It represents blood. That represents blood spilled by Native Americans protecting this land from the invaders. Yeah, that's right. That's right. You don't want to hear the goddamn truth, do you? Get on, bitch. You don't want to hear the truth. That's what that flag stands for. All the Native Americans you killed to plant your houses here. That's the truth. That's the truth. That's the truth.
The people in the city of Liberty, Mississippi, have a dark secret. In 1964, Lewis Allen was shot and killed. He was an eyewitness to a murder. Herbert Lee, a black civil rights activist, was killed by a pro-segregation state legislator, E.H. Hurst. Allen talked to the FBI and NAACP's Julian Bond. E.H. Hurst was found not guilty by an all-white jury. Despite having 11 witnesses to the murder, including Allen. On January 31st, 1964, Allen was mysteriously killed by 2 shotgun blasts to the head. The cold case, is still unsolved. The murder of Lewis Allen.
9/10 of the people on this planet are people of color. People classified as Europeans, white people are a minority. So why is it that all the images of God, the Son of God, all the angels are all white if they are a minority of people on the planet? So what we're dealing with is the greatest form of brainwashing ever imagined as a means of controlling a people from the inside out.
Remember now, the CIA and the FBI employs hundreds of psychologists. We fail to recognize this, but propaganda is one of the most important institutions of any government. Your ability to control the thinking of the masses is critical to you controlling the masses.